We are here today to talk to Professor Jack Richards to discuss his new book, Approaches and Methods in Language Teaching. This book has been on the bookshelf of many teachers around the world for many years. Can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Well, the book surveys different approaches and methods that have been used for the last, say, 100 years or so for teaching English as a second or foreign language. Most graduate programs for teachers require teachers to do two kinds of courses. One is a methodology course, which looks at principles and practices for teaching reading, writing, grammar, pronunciation, and so on. This is not that kind of book. This is a book that looks at specific general methods that have been used to teach English over the last 100 years, and in particular the ones that are still prominent today.
So the first edition of this book came out in 1986, and there has been a second edition since. Why the need for a third edition now?
Well, the book has been very widely used and translated into a number of different languages, and so I've had many requests from professors and teachers for a new edition because they want to continue using the book, but they want it to be more up-to-date. So that was the basic motivation. We did some market research, found out what people would like to see in a new edition, and those changes are what you'll see in this third edition.
So apart from refreshing the content, what are some of the other changes that you have made to the book?
There are several new chapters, at least 3 or 4 totally new chapters. There are now discussion questions at the end of each chapter. There are also some examples of commercial materials based on these methods attached to some of the chapters. And at the back of the book, we have a chart that summarizes all the principles of these different methods and their procedures so that one can see at a glance how they all differ and what their similarities are.
Now, the book was co-authored with Theodore Rogers and yourself. How did you manage being in 2 different locations?
Well, it's true. We have been in quite distant locations for some time, and so Ted had other commitments and wasn't really able to give us much help with this edition as with the previous edition, so I didn't mind taking on the bulk of the work for this edition.
Some readers would say, aren't we in a post-methods period now? Why do we still need a book on methods in language teaching?
That's true, and we look at that issue in a number of places in the book. It was said, some years ago that we've moved beyond methods to sort of teachers' personal principles of teaching. In fact, the reality is that in most institutions, teachers do tend to teach within the framework of a particular philosophy or approach. And so others who've researched teaching practices argue that post-methods has gone and we're back to methods, if you like.
In the book, there are a number of new features that try to engage the readers through discussion questions and reflective questions and so on. How would you like to see your readers use the book?
It's really an information-driven book. It's not a book that's designed to give techniques that teachers can apply in their own classrooms. It's to give them the knowledge to be able to look critically at these methods, to understand a little about the history of the profession, where our ideas about language teaching have come from, and what's characterizing current approaches to language teaching today. So it's a resource for developing awareness, knowledge, and critical thinking, really.
So is the book mainly text-based, or does it include additional features as well?
There are tasks as well. So in each chapter, at the end of each chapter, there are discussion questions and follow-up tasks that the teachers and trainers can make use of if they want to go into more depth into some of the methods that are looked at there.
Is the book suitable to work through for readers independently, or is it a book that is more suitable for use as a classroom text?
No, I think it can be used by any teacher who wants to update their professional knowledge. I've tried to keep the writing style as clear as possible. We do cover a lot of territory. As you can see, the third edition is much bigger than the previous editions. I think it's running to about 400 pages. And that's partly because of the additional new content, the 4 new chapters, plus some of the other chapters needed extensive revision. The chapter on learning theories, for example, since so much has gone on in that area, needed extensively updating.
Can you give us some examples of the new chapters, the new content that you have included in the book?
Right. Well, to bring the book up to date, I've added chapters on the Common European Framework, content and language integrated learning, text-based teaching, and I've also, towards the end of the book, looked at the role of learners, the role of teachers, and the role of the curriculum. So we have a whole chapter on learners and methods, a chapter on teachers and methods, how teachers, if you like, reinvent methods based on principles and philosophies. And also we look at, in the very last chapter of the book, on a sort of connecting methods to the nature of a language curriculum and the different ways these interface, if you like. So those are some of the new things that have added substantial amount of content to the book.
A wonderful achievement. Thank you very much, Jack.